I've been secretly married to the movie star for 5 years, and our relationship has broken down. On set, he embraced and kissed his first love. I pretended not to see. On a reality show, I flirted and held hands with a top celebrity, and he gave me the cold shoulder. Later, I had a miscarriage while filming and called him in tears. He was attending an award ceremony with his first love and didn't pick up. Online, people cursed me, pregnant before marriage, so immoral. He publicly responded, "The child was mine." After 5 years of being secretly married, I was finally acknowledged as his woman, no longer hidden in the shadows. But I was tired of it. I didn't want him anymore. On my birthday, I had surgery. Before entering the operating room, the doctor asked, "Is no one from your family coming?" 2 nurses walked by, gossiping together. Leonard and Callista were caught on a date. I heard they were each other's first loves. Do you think they'll get back together? It's so romantic, like they're meant to be. They have to get married. Leonard. I hadn't seen him in a long time. A sharp pain throbbed in my chest. I lowered my eyelids and said to the doctor, "I can manage on my own." He advised, "Your condition isn't a minor issue. Even though you got special approval, having family with you is always best." I smiled without saying a word. My husband was with another woman. He didn't have time for me, and I didn't want to bother him. In the 5th year of our secret marriage, it felt like Leonard and I were nearing the end. The surgery lasted 3 hours and went smoothly. When I woke up, it was already dark. The first call I received was from Leonard. Just as I answered, I heard Callista's voice. "Brianna, Leonard told me it's your birthday today." "Happy birthday." "He just bought me a cake, it was so good." "There's still half left, I'll have him bring it to you." "Don't mind it, okay?" "It's so late, I'd get you a gift, but nowhere's open right now." Before she could finish, Leonard took the phone back. "Stop bothering people, you talk too much." Almost at the same time, Leonard and Callista both said this. Callista complained to Leonard, "I knew you'd say that again. You used to always lecture me when we were dating. Now, you're not my boyfriend anymore." Leonard chuckled softly. I heard someone teasing, "Leonard only seems human when he's with Callista. Why not just get back together?" Suddenly, I felt nauseous. The pain in my chest was so sharp, I wanted to cry. Before the tears fell, I hung up the phone. Leonard called again immediately. I pressed decline, then turned off my phone. I stayed in the hospital for 3 days, before forcing myself to get back to work. I was a regular guest on the variety show Slow Life and couldn't miss the recording, or I'd lose money. This episode had 2 special guests, rumored to be a celebrity couple, causing a lot of buzz. The male guest called, his voice disguised, so I couldn't tell who it was. He said, "I'm here looking for someone. There's someone I haven't seen in a long time and I miss her." 10 minutes later, the door to the small courtyard opened, and Leonard stood there, smiling warmly. I was holding firewood, covered in dust, staring in shock. Was he the special guest? Why was he here? He hated participating in variety shows. He said he came looking for someone. Who was it he came to see? My heart pounded so loudly I could barely hear anything else. Someone peeked out from behind him, cheerfully greeting everyone. It was Callista. So the rumored couple was them. Leonard's gaze swept over me, cold and indifferent, without stopping. There were 2 other regulars on the show besides me. One was Neil, a senior figure in the industry, well-respected and well-connected, responsible for hosting and conversation. The other was Turnance, a top star, handsome, fit, and great for keeping the show trending. And me. Brianna, an unknown, unremarkable nobody, there to do chores, cook, and serve as a background character. I'd never understood why they cast me as a regular on such a popular show. Was it because I had a chef's certificate? Leonard walked over to Neil, greeting him enthusiastically, "It's been a long time." Callista followed closely, bowing to Neil, "I've heard so much about you. Our new movie is shooting nearby, and Leonard insisted we come to see you." Callista glanced at me, curling her lips in a smug smile, her eyes filled with challenge. Leonard was paving the way for her. When we first got married, Leonard told me we needed to avoid any scandals. For 5 years, he never spoke a word to me in public. If we ran into each other at events, he'd hold his head high and wouldn't spare me even a glance. He'd never thought to introduce me to people or make connections on my behalf. I smiled bitterly. I'd really been deluding myself. How could I have thought that the person Leonard wanted to see was me? Leonard and Callista sat in the courtyard, chatting with Neil. I was in the kitchen cooking, glancing at him from the corner of my eye, and suddenly, the thought of divorce crossed my mind. I had chased Leonard for 3 years, and 5 years ago, I finally got him to marry me. At first, I was so happy I carried our marriage certificate around everywhere, even slept with it under my pillow. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, laughing, rubbing my eyes to make sure the man sleeping next to me was really Leonard. Back then, I could have never imagined that one day, I'd choose to leave first. After all, in our relationship, the power to choose had always been in his hands. When I brought the dishes to the table, Callista glanced at her bowl and mumbled, "I don't eat cilantro." She thought for a moment and then dumped all the things she didn't like into Leonard's bowl. Leonard looked at her, speechless. She stuck out her tongue and made a face at him. Neil laughed. "So the rumors about you two are true, huh? Young love is sweet." Leonard casually replied, "It's not true." Callista's expression faltered slightly but then broke into a carefree laugh. She explained to Neil, "Don't get the wrong idea. Leonard and I are just good friends now. When we dated, he took such good care of me, but I realized I'd get too comfortable. I had to learn to stand on my own." Everyone laughed at her joke. Neil asked her, "So, what kind of person are you looking for now?" Callista counted on her fingers, tall, handsome, calm, loves reading, looks good in glasses, and wears black shirts and gray pants. Leonard chuckled softly. Today, he just so happened to be wearing glasses, a black shirt, and gray pants. Neil laughed too, complimenting Callista, "You're quite the interesting girl." I had been too quiet, so Neil suddenly asked me, "Brianna, I remember your phone wallpaper was Leonard, right? Why are you so shy now that your idol is here? You haven't said a word." I froze. When I looked up, Leonard was watching me with a faint smile. Callista chimed in, pulling out her phone to show everyone her wallpaper. "Does Brianna also use Leonard as her wallpaper?" "Me too. This picture is one I secretly took on set. If you like it, I'll send it to you." In the photo, Leonard was asleep, and Callista was leaning in close, as if they were about to kiss. I smiled calmly, and said, "You two look great together." Then I lowered my head and continued eating. Leonard raised an eyebrow, his gaze sweeping over us, picking up his bowl and taking a sip of rice wine, clearly displeased. After lunch, the director turned off the cameras and let everyone take a break. I'd been busy all morning, and my wound was starting to ache. I went inside, rummaging for my painkillers, but before I could take them, Callista's agent came over. She crossed her arms and demanded I make Callista a salad. Callista didn't eat well at lunch. "Make her a salad and bring it to her." Callista had been too busy talking and hogging the spotlight to eat properly, no wonder. I raised my cup to my lips, smirking coldly, "If she's hungry, she can order takeout. Who's spoiling her bad habits?" The agent slapped my hand, spilling hot water all over me. She warned me in a low voice, "What's with your attitude? Cooking for our Callista is an honor for you. Do you even know her status? When she marries movie king Chin, people will be lining up to kiss up to her. You're lucky we even give you the time of day. Just wait until you're blacklisted." I felt rage boiling inside me, and without thinking, I threw the rest of the water from my cup in her face. Callista heard the commotion and rushed over, quickly pulling out a tissue to wipe her agent's face. "Brianna, did we offend you somehow? If there's an issue, let's talk it through. We're all educated people here, there's no need to get physical." Leonard followed behind her at a leisurely pace, casually shutting the door to keep out the onlookers. I smiled and asked Callista, "Did you not eat well for lunch? You want me to make you a salad now? I just finished cooking for 5 people, and now I'm supposed to cater to you alone? Do I look like your mother? Oh, I heard you're about to marry the big star Chin. Planning to blacklist me, huh?" Go ahead, tell me, how exactly are we supposed to talk it through? Honestly, I never wanted to deal with Callista. All this drama over a man, it's so petty in my book. But since she keeps bothering me, am I supposed to just keep quiet and take it? Callista wasn't expecting my sudden sharp words and hesitated, quickly glancing at Leonard. She approached me, trying to pull me aside with an innocent expression. Brianna, there must be a misunderstanding. Don't be upset. She carried the faint scent of gardenias. I knew the perfume, it was rare and expensive. Leonard had bought it once. At the time, I thought it was a surprise for me and secretly felt happy for days. But of course, I was wrong again. I couldn't help but frown and held out my hand to stop Callista from getting closer. Do me a favor and stay away from me. Your scent makes me nauseous. Her face stiffened, and she forced a tight smile, stepping back 2 paces. Leonard's expression was cold. He just stared at me and said indifferently, Brianna, that was uncalled for. Apologize. I opened my mouth to respond, but before I could speak, tears welled up. How embarrassing, Brianna, why are you crying? Leonard was taken aback and reached out as if to wipe my tears. I dodged his hand and slapped him hard across the face. Barely holding back my sobs, I cursed, don't you dare touch me, you bastard. Callista and her agent were stunned, and when they recovered, they looked at me like they were watching a show. Who dares touch Leonard in this industry? Before you make a move, you should know who you're dealing with. Leonard's head turned from the slap, and he slowly clenched his jaw. Pain shot through my injury, as if someone had stabbed me with a knife and then twisted it. I doubled over in agony. I fumbled to take out my painkillers, swallowing them dry. Suddenly, Leonard snatched the pill bottle from my hand, his face dark as he inspected it. He didn't pursue the matter of me hitting him. Instead, he asked, painkillers? What's hurting? Pale-faced, I clutched the table leg to stand up and slowly made my way toward the bed. It's none of your business. You and Callista can both get lost. He grabbed me forcefully, his eyes fierce. Who told you to go back to work like this? Can't I fucking afford to take care of you? I'll give you 2 choices, either you come home with me quietly, or I carry you home. Your call. Carry me? Here? Who would believe that? All these years, he's been meticulous about avoiding any rumors. There's no way he'd want to stir up trouble over me. I shook off his hand and spoke each word clearly, get lost. Before I could finish, he lifted me up and threw me over his shoulder like a bandit kidnapping a bride. As he stepped out of the room, everyone's eyes turned toward us. My heart raced, pounding in my throat. I covered my face and kicked wildly with my feet. Leonard smacked my behind and growled, if you keep acting up, I swear I'll throw you in a ditch. Leonard tossed me into the car, and in the chaos, my wound reopened. Blood seeped through, and his expression darkened. He reached out and stripped off my clothes, exposing a 2-centimeter-long purple scar on my chest. Leonard, are you out of your mind? Furious, I tried to scratch him, but he easily caught my wrists, his eyes glaring at me, though his voice softened. Can you just behave for once? I called you, but you didn't answer. You're playing hide-and-seek with me. Why didn't you tell me about the surgery? You think I'm dead, is that it, Brianna? He clenched his teeth, as if he was actually feeling sorry for me. What an act. I sneered, putting my clothes back on, curling up in the seat, and closing my eyes to shut him out. 2 weeks ago, they found something in my breast, a large mass. I needed surgery to remove it and test for cancer. I'd hesitated before the surgery and ended up calling Leonard. Just before the call was about to disconnect, he picked up. His voice was low, yeah, what's up? That simple yeah summed up our entire relationship. I choked on my words, tears uncontrollably streaming down my face. My mind was a mess, not knowing how to tell him that I might have breast cancer, that I might die. I'm sick. I had barely gotten the words out when I heard Callista's voice, Leonard, if you don't come over here, I'm really going to be mad. Leonard chuckled and said to me, wait, I'll call you back. I stared at the phone after he hung up, feeling more disappointment than ever. By midnight, he still hadn't called. Leonard, why am I always the one waiting for you? Leonard, I'm done waiting. After he bandaged my wound, Leonard drove me straight home. His phone kept buzzing, but eventually, he just turned it off. I lay in bed, turning my back to him, speaking calmly, "You should go. You've got things to do." The companionship I never had, now, it didn't seem to matter anymore. Sleep. From now on, I won't hang up on you again. The room fell silent as Leonard tucked me in and left. I was exhausted, and slept straight through until 9 p.m. When I woke up, Leonard was still there. He stood by the living room's floor-to-ceiling window, hands in his pockets, a cigarette dangling from his lips. That carefree, roguish look, only I knew it so well. The living room lights were off, the glowing orange tip of his cigarette flickering in the dimness. "Are you hungry? I made some porridge." He walked over, putting out the cigarette as he came. I clenched my fists, finally gathering the courage to say what I had to say. "Let's get a divorce." Leonard paused, like he'd just heard a joke, and chuckled lightly. Casually, he asked, "Why?" Without thinking, I replied, "I hate you." He came up to me, brushing my hair behind my ear, resting his hand on my cheek. "Brianna, when we got married, we said, for better or worse, in sickness and in health. We're not afraid of life or death, so what's hate supposed to mean? So, darling, your reason doesn't count." On the 10th day of my Cold War with Leonard, I received a notification from the film The Canvas to attend the final audition. I was so excited that I rolled around on my bed. The movie has an impressive lineup, from the director to the cast, all top-notch, and half of the investment came from foreign sources. Perhaps that's why Leonard couldn't easily interfere. I felt a sense of hidden satisfaction. I thought, in the war between him and me, I had finally scored a small victory. At the audition site, I ran into Callista. She greeted me openly, "Brianna, are you here to compete for the female lead too? You're such a great actress, make sure to go easy on me." Her agent chuckled with a mocking tone. "Brianna can't possibly be competing for the lead role. The female lead doesn't need acting skills, she needs status. And besides, Callista, didn't Leonard already tell you? Just focus on your performance, the lead role is yours. Don't worry." I closed the script, deciding to take a minute to teach Callista a little life lesson. I asked her, "Do you know I'm planning to divorce Leonard?" Watching her eyes light up, I chuckled, then continued, "But he doesn't agree." Callista's disappointment was visible, and I stood up, half a head taller than her. I poked her forehead with my finger, forcing her to retreat. "Callista, if you can convince Leonard to divorce me and marry you, then I'll give you credit for that. Until then, don't you think you're just like those smug mistresses? You know why I don't bother with you? Because you're not worth it." Her face turned red with embarrassment. I pulled out a sanitizing wipe, cleaned my hands, and tossed the tissue in the trash. The canvas is set in the last century and tells the story of a charismatic painter's various romances. The male lead is the son of a wealthy family. At 18, his father marries a stunning stepmother, whose seductive glances often leave the young man in a daze. They begin a forbidden affair within the oppressive walls of the mansion. She is both his first love and his awakening to physical desire. The role I'm auditioning for is that of the stepmother, though it's not a large role, the character is rich and dynamic. While waiting backstage, someone suddenly whispered close to my ear, "Brianna." My heart skipped a beat. I turned and saw Turnance. I'd heard he was cast as the male lead in the movie. He's 5 years younger than me, and when we filmed Slow Life together, he used to trail behind me like a child who hadn't been weaned. At that time, I really saw him as a younger brother. But today, as he looked at me, there was something different in his eyes. It was like the way the young master looks at his stepmother, possessive, teasing her, tempting her when no one's watching. I clenched my fists to bring myself back to reality and greeted Turnance casually. He smiled and asked, "Feeling better? Your face is so red." It was a line from the script. The scene for the audition was when the stepmother pretends to be sick to sneak out. Turnance was my scene partner. The stepmother loves water, so she sneaks off to a lake on the outskirts of town to swim. By chance, or perhaps on purpose, the young master is there sketching, The water-soaked fabric clung to her body, outlining her curves, becoming the most intoxicating poison of the summer. From the shore, the young master watches her intently, the desire in his eyes growing stronger. When she has had enough fun, she sneaks into a cave to change out of her wet clothes. The young master follows her, stepping right into the web she spun. At first, when she notices him, she feigns surprise and panic. When he sits beside her, she blushes and scoots away, keeping a safe distance. The young master suddenly grabs her face, teasing her as he leans in. He doesn't kiss her right away, but taunts her, "Running from me? Where could you possibly hide? You've been misbehaving." Turnance had already moved in close. He hooked an arm around my neck, trapping me so I couldn't escape. Just then, the door swung open, and Leonard walked in, casually seating himself beside the director, smiling, "Sorry I'm late." His cold gaze swept past Turnance and landed on me. He flashed me a crooked smile, like a mischievous cat toying with an unsuspecting mouse. It was then I realized, he was one of the producers of the canvas. Leonard did this on purpose. He was waiting to watch me struggle, and then, with a single finger, he could crush me. He was wearing down my spirit. I froze, feeling as if a hole had been torn open in my chest, letting a bone-chilling draft blow right through me. Turnance suddenly pinched the back of my neck, his voice husky as he whispered in my ear. "Brianna, focus. It's time for you to kiss me. Wait." The scene should have ended by now. Before I could react, he added, "Or I can kiss you instead." That wasn't in the script. Leonard's smile abruptly vanished. "That's enough." Leonard spoke up suddenly. Fiddling with his lighter, he called out to me with irritation, "Brianna, go home and wait for the result." I clenched my fists silently. Wait for the result? I wanted to leap up and tear his face apart. Turnance held me down, his gaze locked on mine, and said slowly and deliberately, "You don't need to wait. I want you. My stepmother." He leaned lazily on my shoulder, still smiling as he glanced at Leonard. "Sorry, Senior, but I get the final say on this. You know Wayne, right? He's my father." I remembered that Wayne was the film's biggest sponsor. Turnance tilted his head back, and his hair tickled my neck. The contract was signed on the spot, as if Turnance was afraid I'd run off. Leonard watched coldly, and by the time I looked up after signing, he was gone. In the parking garage, a force suddenly yanked me into a corner. Leonard leaned down to kiss me. I swung my bag at his head, shouting, "If you're sick, go get treated. Don't come here acting crazy." He glared at me, gritting his teeth to hold back his temper. "Brianna, the hits I've taken in my life, I've gotten them all from you." His smile was cold and full of contempt. "What? You don't want to kiss? Or are you saying Turnance is a better kisser than me?" I smiled back, "Once we're divorced, I'll give it a try and let you know." I had rarely seen him this frustrated. "Leonard, does it feel bad to be defeated by capital? You should have known by now, no one can control everything." Leonard's voice turned dark. "Have you caused enough trouble yet? All this just because I hung up on you, and now you want a divorce? Couldn't you have sent me a message afterward? Brianna, you're just trying to make me feel guilty." "Fine, I feel guilty. I'm sorry. I promise I'll never hang up on you again. What more do you want?" I stared at his face and realized that for all the love Leonard had acted out, he didn't understand a thing about love. He's just a selfish bastard who doesn't know how to repent, let alone reflect. All he wants is for others to step back, to make his so-called peaceful world complete. In the end, it's still because of Callista. Those rumors are part of my job, you know that. He was still rambling, unwilling to admit he had divided his heart in love. His clinging was truly pathetic. The man I'd loved for 5 years disintegrated before my eyes, leaving only an ugly shell. I clicked my tongue, feeling sorry for myself. "Leonard, how about we play a game? If you don't hang up on any of my calls within the next month, I'll drop the divorce talk." His expression softened, a hint of a smile in his eyes. "Brianna, that's not hard." I forced a smile without saying anything. It really wasn't hard. "But Leonard, you won't be able to do it." After signing with the film crew, a lot of negative rumors about me suddenly surfaced online. They said I had a sugar daddy and that I only got into the crew because of Turnance. Turnance directly shared a comment, "Brianna has won multiple acting awards, does she need a sugar daddy to get into a film?" The question was sharp and impossible to answer. Exactly. Shouldn't people with talent rely on their ability to get cast? If talented people need a sugar daddy to get roles, then whose problem is it? The longer you know Turnance, the more you realize he's a master of subtle moves. He's got family connections, education, emotional intelligence, and sharp skills. He's the kind of person who thrives anywhere he goes. Impressions of Illusion was on a tight schedule, and just a few days after signing the contract, all the actors started makeup trials and photo shoots. Callista got what she wanted and landed the lead role. She wore 2 braids and a school uniform, giving off a pure, fresh beauty. But there was a trace of cunning in her eyes that felt out of place. Today, we were supposed to shoot promotional stills, with the female cast members, and Turnance gathered for a group photo. The moment Callista saw me, her expression changed. Her manager started yelling at the makeup team leader. "Brianna looks way too flashy, this won't do. She's a supporting actress, and she wants to steal the spotlight from the lead? Take off all that gaudy stuff she's wearing, now." In the film, I play the favored stepmother, so my styling was indeed more glamorous than the others. The stylist rolled his eyes and told them to talk to the director. He just gets paid to do his job, and he works for whoever pays him. Callista tried to smooth things over. "Brianna's look suits her, she's meant to be seductive and charming, it fits. But am I looking a bit too plain?" She pointed at a pair of exquisite white jade earrings. "They fit the cool and ethereal vibe of the lead, right? Maybe I could." Those earrings were something Turnance had brought from home to the set. Callista glanced at him, fluttering her eyes in an attempt to flatter him. Turnance's voice was cold. "You're here to act, not to compete for beauty. If you want to act, do it. If not, get lost." He was flipping through the script, not even lifting an eyelid. Callista, humiliated, stormed off in anger. That day, Turnance showed me what it means to be decisive. He had his legal team sue Callista for breach of contract and called Dolores, who had just won a Best Actress award, to replace her in the lead role with one phone call. Callista probably thought someone would come to smooth things over for her, but Turnance didn't even give her a chance to regret it. When Dolores arrived and saw me, she smiled and whispered to Turnance, "Looks like you finally succeeded in chasing after your idol." I focused on the photo shoot and pretended not to hear. Actually, I had long realized that Turnance was my fan. When I first debuted, I became an overnight sensation. I participated in a show where one lucky fan would be chosen to be my pen pal for a year. We exchanged letters every month, and in the last letter, I sent a handmade charm, wishing him good fortune in life. I've seen that charm before. Turnance wears it around his neck. We wrapped up work at 6, right on time. I had a text from Leonard, "Brianna, you haven't called me even once." I didn't reply. I used to wait every day, terrified I'd miss one of his calls. I waited for 5 years, endured for 5 years. "Leonard, it's only been a few days, and you're already getting impatient?" I threw my phone aside and started the car. Turnance knocked on my window and said, "Brianna, mind giving me a ride?" I wanted to say no, but before I realized it, I was already driving him 5 miles down the road. I thought he'd start talking about random things, but instead, we talked about movies the entire ride. I glanced occasionally at the scribbles in his script, then at his carefree face. Turns out, deep down, he's a very serious person. The contrast was surprising. Turnance had a dinner party that night, so I dropped him off. It wasn't until I got close to home that I realized he'd left his script in my car. I didn't know when we'd meet next, but I knew he'd need the script soon. So, I turned around and drove back to deliver it. Turnance told me the room number and asked me to come up. When I opened the door, I heard Callista's voice slipping through the crack. "Turnance, you shouldn't burn bridges like this. We're all in the same industry. Wouldn't it be better if we all looked out for each other instead of making enemies?" Turnance laughed. "You've misunderstood something. Messing with you isn't making enemies, at most, it's entertainment." Do you think you're someone important, bossing me around like this? Callista's hands were trembling with anger. Leonard was there too, smirking as he chimed in, "Does your father know you act this cocky in front of me?" He turned and saw me, his words catching in his throat. I ignored him, waved the script at Turnance, placed it on a chair by the door, and turned to leave. Leonard suddenly grabbed me and slammed me against the wall, making me wince in pain. His words came out through gritted teeth, "You didn't call, didn't reply to my texts, was it because you were with him?" I smiled and used the same excuse he always gave me, "It's just work." I thought you'd understand. I deliberately came in to mess with Leonard. How could I be at ease without making him taste the same bitterness I endured? He blinked back tears, chuckled bitterly, and said, "Brianna, you really are ruthless. If you want to play, fine. But don't forget to call me. I'm waiting for you." Leonard, does it feel good to be humble? Getting that revenge on Leonard was deeply satisfying, but the cost was some awkwardness the next time I saw Turnance. He remembered that phrase, "It's just work," and would tease me about it every chance he got. When we rehearsed lines together, sometimes my character had to act really close with him, like putting an arm around his shoulder. Afterward, feeling a bit awkward, I'd pull back. But he'd say, "I get it. We're just working together." One time, I brought him a cup of coffee, his favorite. He took a sip, clearly happy, but still muttered, I know. It's just work." "Turnance, are you a devil?" We started filming the new movie, and the first scene was a lakeside scene where the stepmother plays in the water. The director said if we waited much longer, it'd get too cold to shoot the scene. The lake water was freezing, and I had thick layers of plastic wrap on under my clothes to keep warm. The first take failed, and they pulled me out shivering. Turnance handed me a thick blanket, with heat patches attached to it. His assistant commented, "I told you, summer isn't even over, why are you buying so many heat patches?" Turnance shot him a glare. I felt a little awkward, and just as I was about to say something, Turnance leaned in and whispered with a laugh, "Brianna, you're not going to say it's just work again, are you?" "But what if I don't want it to be just work?" I froze for a moment, and luckily, the director came over to ask if I was ready for the second take, saving me. After the second take, I should have been more used to it than the first. But 5 minutes later, I felt a sudden pain in my lower abdomen, and my hands and feet started cramping. I thought maybe my period was coming, and braced myself for a rough month. Someone on the shore noticed something was off and called out, "Brianna, are you okay?" Just as I was about to signal, a sharp pain made me curl up, and I started sinking. Someone grabbed me and pulled me out of the water. Brianna, are you all right?" A crowd gathered around, panicking. "She's bleeding, Brianna's bleeding." "Brianna, are you pregnant?" "Pregnant? How could I be?" Leonard and I had. The pain was so bad I couldn't speak, but suddenly, my mind flashed back to a night before my recent breast exam. I'd had trouble sleeping and took some sleeping pills. Late at night, I felt someone kissing me. I opened my eyes and, through the blur, thought I saw Leonard. But I was too tired, so I turned over and went back to sleep. The next morning, when I woke up, there was no one else in the bed but me. Could it have been that night? My agent took me to the nearest hospital. She grabbed my phone and called Leonard over and over, but he kept hanging up. Nearby, someone was watching an award show livestream. I heard Callista's voice, "I want to thank my mentor, my first love, my true love. Thank you for presenting me this award. Leonard, I share this honor with you. I love you, literally." A few young people nearby were so excited, they were practically hugging each other. They gossiped excitedly, "Did you hear that? She said she loves him, she loves him, she loves him." I knew they were for real. My agent's eyes reddened with anger. I curled up in a ball, and amidst everyone's cheers, I let go of the little life inside me. I lost my baby. The doctor said they hadn't detected it earlier, probably because it was still too soon. Less than 2 months along, my child came quietly and left just as quietly, without even saying hello. I've always had a weak constitution and irregular periods since I was younger. This time, when I didn't get my period for over a month, I thought it was just stress messing with my hormones again. Turns out, there was a little troublemaker hiding in my belly. I couldn't describe how I felt, just that my chest felt unbearably tight. I clenched my fist and pounded on my heart, and as I kept hitting, tears started to fall. My assistant rushed in with my phone, her face full of panic. Seeing me crying, she froze, speechless. I asked her what was wrong, and she stammered, "You're trending." I don't know who paid for it. I took the phone and saw the screen full of insults. Pregnant before marriage? So shameless. Isn't she the no-name actress who joined the cast because of her connections and drove Callisto away? So many sugar daddies, who knows whose bastard she's carrying? My agent said that a few actors in the cast were close with Callista, so it's likely they've already spread the word about my miscarriage. It's obvious who paid for the trending topic. Callista, you just couldn't resist messing with me, could you? My face grew cold inch by inch. I opened my photo album, found my marriage certificate, and posted a Weibo, "Getting a divorce." Less than 2 minutes later, Leonard posted on Weibo too, blowing up the trending list. He wrote, "The child was mine. We've been married for 5 years. It's my fault I couldn't protect her, or the baby. Please don't disturb her. Give us some privacy, thank you." I sneered. He finally decided to act like a man. The comment section was quickly flooded. Let me get this straight, Leonard pretended to be single and milked his love scandals during the whole marriage, right? Wow, even an award-winning actor is this shameless for money. Leonard, no matter what you do, we'll support you. He's in his mid-30s, what's the big deal about being married? Marriage isn't the problem, but his character sure is. Meanwhile, a crowd rushed to Callista's account to demand justice. What's going on, Brianna? Are you the mistress? How could you stir up love rumors when he's married? Shameless. How do you have the nerve to cling to Leonard all the time? Did you cause her miscarriage with all your drama? You stole tonight's award. Look at your lousy acting, you'll get what's coming to you. This storm spared no one. But it didn't matter. The barefoot aren't afraid of those with shoes. I'm not a traffic-driven celebrity. Whoever relies on popularity will be devoured by it. Leonard sent me countless texts, asking where I was, begging for me to talk to him. He showed up in the middle of the night, and I was asleep. He placed his hand on my stomach, gently stroking through the blanket. I woke up from his touch, grabbed the thermos next to me, and threw it at him. Don't *********************** ing touch me. That night, you didn't use protection, did you? He didn't answer, just stared at me in agony, pleading for me not to look at him like a stranger. He didn't realize how much even a glance at him disgusted me now. Leonard, you hung up on my calls. I laughed cruelly as I watched his pained expression. See? Even something this simple, he couldn't manage. Leonard, you've lost. You should accept it. Take a good look at yourself and see what a rotten person you've become. The room was filled with silence. After a long while, he finally struggled to explain, I wasn't the one who hung up. I watched him with a smirk, and he couldn't meet my eyes anymore. Callista barged into the hospital room, still in her gown, her makeup streaked from crying. Brianna, you be *******************************************************************************************************************. Leonard grabbed her and shouted, "What the F*** is wrong with you?" Callista stared at him, crying uncontrollably. Tonight should have been her moment of glory, but now it was all ruined. Everyone was calling her a mistress, and the golden trophy she'd worked so hard for had become a dirty symbol. From now on, when people mentioned this night, it wouldn't be about Best Actress Callista. Instead, she would forever be the mistress everyone despised. She ruined me. She ruined me. Leonard, how could you admit it? She'll destroy you too. Leonard pushed her to the ground, leaving her looking like a soaked dog. She was pathetic. Still clinging to Leonard, hoping he'd deny everything. The marriage certificate had already been posted. If she were smart, she'd just admit it and take the hit. 5 years of marriage, though it's over, I hadn't planned to be this ruthless. But Callista, you should have known better, you reap what you sow. After Leonard and I divorced, his career plummeted. His competitors pounced, and scandal after scandal surfaced. There wasn't enough time to handle it all. Some involved legal issues, and the authorities were already investigating. There were also things I didn't know, reckless things he did as a teenager. Drinking, fighting, failing classes, buying a diploma. And of course, there was Callista. They were a perfect match, both rotten to the core. One day, a trending topic popped up, Leonard and Callista, a dog-eat-dog fight. I chuckled and swiped past. After finishing The Art of the Canvas, I stopped taking screen roles and shifted to theater. I love acting, not the entertainment industry. I had a heart-to-heart with Terrence once. Call me naive, but I didn't want him to put me on a pedestal. I thanked him for all his help, but that's where it ended. Thinking back, I was once Leonard's fan too, stepping into the grave of marriage with unrealistic fantasies, only to come out scarred. Terrence listened carefully, his gaze deep, as if concealing a hidden vortex. He said, "Brianna, I'm 5 years younger than you, not 50. I know the difference between love and admiration. I'm willing to be your man and love you forever. I can also stand behind you, silently supporting you. However you need me to be, I'll be." At my first performance, Terrence sat in the front row. He was excited but kept his arms tightly crossed to avoid disturbing others. I bowed deeply to him. "Thank you for being my supporter. I will love you forever." The end.